Okay. I'd like to call to order the meeting of Wednesday, March 24th, 6:30 or so, the SHAPE Committee of St. Helena. So I guess we need to do roll call.
Chair Smithers.
Here.
Vice Chair Chateau.
Here.
Committee Member Barr.
Here.
Caldwell.
Here.
Dell.
Here.
Feeney.
Here.
Knight. Neiman.
Here.
Park.
Here.
Salvestron.
Here.
Smith.
Okay. Josh was here. Great. Did you get him? Oh, okay. Cool. So I'm not sure if there's anybody out there in the public that wants to come up and speak before us before we get into our agenda items. No. All right, so we'll close public comment and go on to the consent calendar, which we have one item on that, and that's the approval of the SHAPE Committee minutes from the last meeting on January 17th, 2018. Anybody want to pull it and talk about it, or are we good to go?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay. So we're on to new business. We're going to actually switch it around just slightly. We're going to do item 5.2 first, just in case we run out of time. Then Mark would have a handout for item 5.1, and we could just hand it out and follow up on it later. So go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, as probably suggested by the cartoon in the paper about getting in shape, we're going to get out of our seats a little bit tonight. And so we have a group exercise plan that will take probably at least an hour and a half. And that exercise is intended to, at the end of the day today, create a data set that we will be sharing with you at a subsequent date. So today we're going to be receiving initial impressions of ideas, capturing those on a sheet of paper that you'll work with in a group, and Jean Holsten, our facilitator, will introduce the exercise to you. But the intent is not to judge the various ideas that come out of and emerge from the discussion, but simply to record those as potential options. And what we will do is compile that information and then bring it back to you at a subsequent meeting so that you have additional feedback on ideas, and those ideas will become hopefully a starting point for a conversation down the road. As we discussed at the last meeting, next Wednesday's meeting on January 31st will be canceled, and we'll meet again on February 7th. At that meeting, we have the Cosmont companies coming to talk about asset strategy. And so that will consume most of that meeting. We may have an opportunity to follow up on the other item on the agenda tonight, or bring you back additional data from this exercise tonight. And then following that, the following Wednesday on February 14th, we will be introducing to you two different options related to decision making. So this is going to be the starting point for how do you want to shape your ideas, identify the options. And there will essentially be a more structured approach and a less structured approach. And so we will bring that to you on the 14th, receive feedback, and you'll make decisions on how you want to move forward at that point. And then that's when the real fun begins, because you'll be jumping into the challenge of what to do with the challenges that the council has asked. So with that, let me introduce Jean Holsten to get started with the exercise tonight.
Good evening. I'm imagining that you guys are more than ready to start talking about these different assets that you have been studying so diligently. So that's the purpose of this exercise. What we've done is we've divided the assets into three different groups. So each of the buildings or plots of land have been divided into three groups, and then we've divided you all into three groups. So there's groups of 3 and 4 for each of these. So what you're going to do, it's like speed dating. You're going to move around to a group that is talking about these 3 or 4 buildings or assets. You're going to do that for 45 minutes at the most, and then we'll let you know, and it's time for the group to move to the next set. Okay? And while you're in that set, there's going to be myself, Mark, and Roseanne will be staffing these and capturing. What we're asking you to do is to say whether you want to rehabilitate the current building, rebuild a new building with similar use on site, or you want to do something completely different, sell the building or parcel. So we're asking you to divide it into those three, and then we're asking you for alternative uses. And we're just going to capture all of that. So you'll have 2 minutes each in order to really get through this. So 2 minutes per building, okay? And we'll just take them one building at a time. We'll go through the 4 people. We'll shift to the next building, okay? And then, like I said, in about 30 to 45 minutes, we'll call time and have you move to the next one. And we'll double check to make sure everybody's had the opportunity to do it. We'll be keeping time for you, and we'll be capturing this stuff for you so that you can just concentrate on what you want to say about those buildings. Does that make sense? Now, we're going to invite the public into a similar process.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So will each of us fill out one of those on each building, or just the group will fill out
The group.
one on each building?
The group.
Okay. And when you say alternative uses, are you saying alternative uses for the specific building that we're talking about?
Right.
Okay.
Or site.
Or site?
Right. Yes.
Do we have answers on what the covenants are on the Carnegie Building and the Scout Hall, so that we know whether we can say what we think it should be used for, it could be used for?
No, this is brainstorming. I mean, this is really like, let's dream. Not ridiculously out of touch, but, right?
So we should assume that anything's gained for those buildings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, yeah.
Are we going to also brainstorm sites, uses for for example, City Hall? When we get to City Hall, are we going to brainstorm other places to put City Hall?
When it comes to City Hall, anything that you want to say about that goes down here. So yes, it could be that you want it to go
Okay, so it's
someplace
not
else.
limited to the sites and buildings that we own and are specifically assigned to talk about. This could expand out to any place in town where you might move that function and park it somewhere else.
Right. So, for example, on the sell parcel or sell the building option, we have a follow-up question to that. And that question is if there is a service that exists at that site today. So let's use City Hall as an example. Where would you put that service? So we're going to capture that data. There's a extra line under that. In your groups, you may have different perspectives on whether to sell or to rehabilitate, and so we want you to tally. Take the vote on: is there one person that's here, another person there? Everyone's on the same page. Just capture that vote and tally. But there also may be different perspectives on where you move that service to. So that's okay too. Use the space there. And if we run out of room for all the alternate sites, we have 15 lines for each building. But we may need more. So we have the back of the page available for you.
Other questions about the process? Yeah.
I just have a comment, and this is to some degree really directed more at the public and anybody that's watching. I think for this to work, we should be free to propose anything that's a feasible use for the site, but some of those they could cause people to have a little bit of heartburn out there, and even in our own group. Just because an idea is proposed doesn't mean this group is recommending it. It doesn't even mean the person who threw it out as an idea thinks it's a particularly good idea. But in order for this to be a creative process, I think we should be free to suggest whatever is feasible out there. We'll call through it later and figure out if it's a good idea or a bad idea. But I just don't want the impression out there that if somebody says, well, we could use it for this, they say, oh, no, they're proposing that we use it for that. That I don't think is the point of this exercise, to make it look like these are recommendations in any way, shape, or form.
I would say that is accurate, not just for the public, but for each other. This is just getting a pulse right now. It's not being positional at all. so none of you are locked in. This is truly just throwing everything out there and just like, I don't have all the information. I haven't thought it all through, but here's where I am right now. So thank you. We really want to make sure that that's clear.
I concur with Tim. No sacred cows.
Just let yourselves flow. I mean, this is also your beginning foray into listening to each other talk in more depth about these particular assets. It's your beginning foray into really engaging each other, because there'll be a time to ask questions if there's some clarification that you need or want from somebody, okay? Now, those of you that are used to being a little more loquacious, we're going to have to be succinct. It's speed dating. You get 2 minutes, and we will keep that time and cut you off, only because that's the only way we're going to be able to get through all of this and have everybody talk about each one of the buildings, okay? All right. Thank you. We have 3 workstations, and each workstation is, actually 4. We have 3 workstations for the committee that will handle sets of buildings, okay? The first one is in yellow. It's over here. Mark is going to be taking care of that table, doing the timing and capturing the information, and it's in yellow. The second one is in pink. Roseanne is going to be taking care of that, and that's going to be right here in this area. And the third one is in green, and that will be over here. Let me tell you what groups you're in. In Group 1, which is not connected to the workstation, although we'll start you out, Group 1 will start out with Group Workstation 1. Okay, so you'll go to the yellow. And that is Mark Smithers, Pat Dell, Glenn Smith, Jeff Feeney. You're in Group 1. So you'll start there, and then you'll move to Group 2. Group 2, that's Joshua Park and, I don't know how to say, Chateau? Thank you. Tim Neiman and Doug Barr. That's Group 2. And Group 3 is Suzanne Silvestri? Salvestrin, thank you. Stan Knight and Oliver Caldwell. Okay? And that group will start with the green. You'll start over here. Group 3 will start here. Group 2 will start there. Group 1 will start there. You'll have about 45 minutes. Now, let me tell you what's happening with the public. We're going to invite you into that same process to talk about what you think about the buildings. Cindy, gosh, I just lost your name. I'm so sorry. Cindy will be leading that at the back table. And you'll go through the same process with the buildings and what you think. And we'll be capturing those. Okay? Ready to start? Ready to go. Fabulous. Ready to go. Group 1 at Workstation 1. Group 2 at Workstation 2. Group 3 at Workstation 3.
We clearly have the best team. It's ridiculous.
So thank you for participating so well. What we're going to do, the information that we all scribed in the different groups, and we're going to tally it for you, and then we're going to send it to you. But what we wanted to do, just to close this piece off, is to invite you to share with yourselves and with the public. Was there anything that surprised you as you listened to each other? Did you notice points of similarity? Like, where there seemed to be a lot of consistency over certain buildings or spaces? And was there places where you thought, no, there's a lot of diversity in the way we're looking at these? So I just invite you to jump in as you're ready.
I'm so sorry. Oh, wait. They're not working. Hold on. Let me go grab a handheld.
It's okay.
If an engineer goes to the podium. Okay. So from Joshua.
It is. Oh, there.
All of those
think it's-
microphones do not work. From Joshua over to Jeff. I noticed that too.
Or stand here.
Or you can go to the podium.
Well, I enjoyed the whole thing, and I heard many ideas that at first maybe I had heard a while ago that I thought, oh, no, 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 no. But when you listen to everyone and the ideas that come out, it's really nice to hear all the differences that you can hear and agree, and sometimes maybe not agree wholeheartedly, but I did enjoy this whole thing, and I can't wait to see the results of what everybody else said.
I get to go last because I'm the chairman, so don't look at me, Oliver.
Oh, well, I just, this is getting fun now because I really enjoyed these little meetings, and I got a kick that Suzanne and I actually got agreed on some things, which was great. And I think this is wonderful because this is kind of like a massaging a master plan in some ways. We're kind of backing into it, and boy, it's a lot of fun. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, if there's no rules and no sacred cows, and we can be free to say what we want to say, even though it would ruffle some feathers. But I think this is, some things like this are going to have to be brought out because a lot is going to have to happen, and there's a lot of NIMBYs in this town, people out of self-interest, a lot of fear. And I think we all kind of agree that some changes have to be made, and changes are scary for a lot of people. So what was interesting was for me, because I didn't think it through, I thought through some of these projects in depth for the last year or two, and some of them I never even thought about, so I had to kind of punt on the spot. But I thought that too many things at once would overwhelm the public. And I think I started to realize for me politically is to take on the important ones first and let the public absorb it. Otherwise, if you completely change the whole map of St. Helena, everybody will freak out. And in some ways, I don't know. So that's my 2 cents.
One of the things I liked about our group, actually, you prompted me to remember this, is there really were no sacred cows. And now that you mention that, I'm surprised. But no one was really, Mark and I kind of disagreed on one area, but there really were no sacred cows. And I think it made for open discussion. And I know when we were over here at this table, we kind of had a little bit more time. And at the very last sentence, Jeff came up with a really terrific idea, which says you really need time to relax and talk over ideas like this and not feel pressured as far as the time that you have to explore, although I didn't feel terribly pressured. I thought you divided up the buildings nicely so that no group had too much of the hard ones and no group had all the easy ones.
Anybody else? Any comments? Sure, go for it.
Good evening, Jeff Feeney, 930 North Crane Avenue. Thank you very much. Thank you. I just wanted to say that it was interesting how there were all these bits and pieces of puzzles and things kind of being shifted around with no real, cohesive thing until the Adam Street kind of vision started looking like, well, maybe we just take everything and shift that to Adam Street. The thing that came out was that the services that are provided by our fire and police are so well respected. We want to make sure that they're taken care of. That was a consensus across the board. The city hall building, I think we're in the consensus of it's got to go, but do we build it or do we sell it? But if we could take our assets and shift everything over and make one really cool project over on Adam Street and have that all coalesce as our city's center and get rid of some of the pieces that don't really fit and we're trying to get a round peg into a square hole, it would be really cool. And the cool thing is I think that while that may not be the solution, that there's ways to make things better. And everybody's open to making things better. And I think that one thing that'll help moving forward is understanding what are the real numbers on some of this stuff. Like, what do we have? What's the equity in something? What's it really worth to us if we keep it or sell it? If we sell it, are we selling ourselves short because we may need that later on? And just keeping our mind open to that. But it's great being in a group, whether it's large or small, where we don't all agree on everything. And I think that's kind of the beauty of being in this room, is that everybody has a different thought and idea, and we can all share them and feel safe in doing so, and knowing that, nobody has a right answer or wrong answer, just ideas. So it was pretty cool.
I actually just have a question. And this, Oliver, I just wanted to find out if what you were suggesting was that there may be some properties that we don't need to present to the public, so that we think in terms of isolating maybe 4 or 5 significant pieces of property or significant projects, and not try to do everything at once. Is that a fair characterization, or did you have another idea?
I was wondering why you were looking at me. No, I know. Only like the Signorelli barn. For me, I thought it's really like low-hanging fruit. It's not the thing that really has the high priority. And let's say that you started a monkey with it, and the whole town went crazy. Save the Signorelli barn, and then people getting signatures at the post office and the Sunshine, and I'm going, oh my God, we just hit a hornet's nest on the stupid barn. So my thought was, leave the barn and let's take care of more important things. That's all it was to prioritize the kind of emotional impact on the town. Because if you touch City Hall, you're going to get a reaction, no matter what you do with it. Why are you rebuilding it? We like the way it is. Why are you moving it? Why are you making it better? It just goes on and on and on. Mm-hmm. And so if you had the Signorelli barn, it's like, creating all the, but, so that's the idea.
Our group had, I think, not to speak for the group, but I think we had consensus on a lot, and we had some really interesting and diverse ideas for properties that were the no sacred cows, and some ideas that might work in different ways. I think we're lacking some information yet about what we can and can't do with certain properties, but overall, I think it was a really good exercise. Everybody, I think, enjoyed it, and our group, I think, without doubt, felt that the City Hall needed to be rebuilt, and I'm betting that that's probably across the board, that it's not a fix-it-up sort of a thing. It may be a tear it down to the ground or keep bits of it and then rebuild it, or it may be move it someplace else. But I think that's going to be a universal understanding, because that's by far the worst one. Some of the other buildings, though, had some real interesting possibilities, and it's clear that we have so much property here that's surprisingly valuable, that there's a lot of underutilization. And once we figure out what we can and can't do with these properties, then we might be able to figure out better uses for them, some of which may be that we lease them and get some money back for them, or we get ways to pay for them in different ways. So anyway, I think there are a lot of good ideas coming out of this, a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit on to what Doug said. We had an interesting conversation about the appropriate place for municipal facilities like the City Hall. And there were a lot of people that felt like it shouldn't be moved off of Main Street, that moving it over, and onto Adams Street or any other non-Main Street place is just a bad location for it. But there were some different opinions on that. So it's an interesting conversation about where all these different puzzle pieces ought to be parked and where they should ultimately end up.
Okay. I'm actually looking forward to hearing what the list of all the ideas from the other groups. Obviously, I know what the four of us came up with, and it was amazing that certain of the properties it was very clear. I mean, it was like unanimous decision whether it was to rehabilitate or to sell or whatever. And then I think the issues surrounding if you were selling it, then how did you replace it or where did you replace it? And that became a little bit more difficult. But I do believe, there's a lot of fantastic ideas. It's going to be great to see, the whole group of the 11's ideas on everything, which I think will be helpful for the public to first get a first idea. And I think that is what we're going to do. We're going to come up with a master plan and present it to the city council, and I feel very confident and comfortable that we're going to come up with something pretty neat that I think we'll all be able to coalesce around for the most part. Yeah.
I'm going to try to say something, Mark. I'm just generally, I think that the idea that I hear floating that I really like and agree with is to have part of this plan be a facility or a property that has some pizzazz and some integration that the public can get behind, such as a cultural center slash multi-use space tied in with Lyman Park, for example. But something that people can rally behind that will create some visibility and some civic pride. For example, a repurposing or a rebuilding of the City Hall property and tying it in with the park as a cultural center, something in that vein. But in general, the idea of having a piece of all these moving pieces result in a piece of property or a solution that has some pizzazz and magnetism to it. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we've concluded the exercise. I really appreciate everyone's involvement in that. It was pretty fun serving as a table monitor. So enjoyed the conversations. The first item that we moved slightly behind here, I've distributed a handout. I think everyone has this now. This is the focus group feedback. This was the homework that we talked about at the last meeting, and what we've received are suggestions related to various demographic groups that might be used as focus groups. And so in addition to that, we had some suggestions on methodology that were shared. And so given the hour, I think it's best that I just identify that this was received. I know that not everyone sent information in, so if you have other ideas, consider this a starting point. And I think what we'll recommend doing is we'll bring this back at a future meeting, so that, and we do have time, because I think from a timing standpoint on focus groups, we're looking at post the week of February 21st, so we'll have a time to bring this back at a future meeting and talk a little bit more about the groups. But I think we have a really good start here in terms of the demographic suggestions. There were also a number of names that were passed along, and I think we'll be able to work with the committee or representatives of the committee to identify where some of those names might fit into these various demographic groups. So with that, I think unless there are any questions, we'll consider that a summary tonight.
How many focus groups are you thinking about doing?
We're really open at this point. This is quite a bit, and so the logistical lift has the potential to be somewhat significant. So I think if I was looking at this list, you could probably combine the chamber and the businesses into one demographic group. But other than that, these are pretty interesting, unique demographic groups. And in talking to Jean, who will serve as a facilitator for those, we do think there may be some value in taking pieces of each of those and putting them into several groups or a couple groups, but also individually talking with seniors, talking with the schools, talking with the service clubs, and receiving feedback from them, because in many respects there's a number of different service clubs, for example. Or with seniors, we have volunteers from Vineyard Valley and Rionda House that can work with us to identify focus group volunteers. So I think we have to be somewhat measured in how many we organize and structure, but I think we have a really good starting point here. I wouldn't necessarily add any to the list. I might, try to shrink it slightly.
I would add one thought, and that is the possibility of growing the Latino community. You have the Up Valley group, and that's, Stonebridge, I think, and they don't, we don't see much of them. They don't come to the public meetings very much, but it might be helpful to try to bring in, there might be a useful viewpoint.
So what I would encourage you to do is, in between the next meeting and today, if you have other ideas like this, let's add it to the list, and anything that is received, we will update this document and bring it back to you at the next meeting. But you'll have a head start on that conversation because you'll have taken an opportunity to look at what's here, along with some of these methodology suggestions.
How many times will this group meet? People are asking me that question.
For the focus groups?
If I agree to be in a focus group, how much of my time is it going to take?
We're looking at potentially 2 rounds, but generally we're probably under 2 hours each round.
Okay, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I know the subject's focus groups, but do we have the final dates and times for the workshops yet?
I don't have them today, but I think by Monday we can share that.
All right. And then a plan of how to get the message out?
Right. And we'll be using all platforms.
Okay. Because that's like in 3 weeks, more or less, right?
Right. It's a little over 3 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
Just about, actually, it's about a month from today. Yeah. Okay.
So I guess that concludes 5.1, which became 5.2, I guess, kind of. Does anybody have any other comments for the good of the order? Otherwise, we'll adjourn the meeting.
Can I just say one thing?
Yep.
Before the comment. This morning, Mark gave an incredible presentation to the Kiwanis group at 7:30 in the morning. And there probably were about a dozen, 15 people in the room. And I was thinking, he presented a very clear message of what the group's about and what the purpose is. And I was thinking, God, too bad this is not captured on video and that it would be on the city website.
Yeah.
So instead of going through a plethora of dry data and clicking and being navigated through different pages, there's just a video with a face making the presentation in 3 minutes of what this is all about. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because then I was thinking it would be great if all of our faces were in this video also, so that people go, oh, I recognize Pat or Glenn or whatever, or Doug. And so there's a kind of a bond going there. There's an emotional glue where people see that it's people I know, and they're making decisions about the city here and recommendations. And so I'm going to be supportive because I have a trust. I see something. And so I just want to run that by everybody. If people are comfortable with this idea, and would you mind being on the video? And what if it was shown at the Cameo? I mean, is it too crazy, or is it too campy?
It's not a bad idea. I mean, I think this is a very big deal for the city. I mean, we're kind of charting, quite a fair amount of the future of town and how things may go and what it's going to look like from a municipal, service standpoint. So, yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, Mark would have to work to get it all set up and, I guess video people, and somehow you got to slice it and cut it and do all that. But I agree. I mean, when people find out that you're on the committee, there is this trust aspect, that exists. And I think that's hopefully, we do want to get the trust of the public so that when we do come up with a proposal and hand it off to city council, they feel like they feel good about it. Whether they agree with the whole thing or not, they still feel good about the process and everybody that was engaged and involved. So,
well, yeah, I'm glad you like it. How does other people feel about it? Do you feel comfortable with this, or?
I think it's a great idea for sort of a fly on the wall, in fact, because this is what would be better PR to get people to want to live in a town like this than show them how a town like this works. Yeah. I mean, this really is the heart of this town, and to show it just by wandering around while we're doing this and listening and seeing how people react and how people work together in this town would make me want to live here, that's for sure.
Yeah, actually, you'd probably be perfect for directing this, right?
The pay is not good enough.
I think the more avenues and venues and channels that we can come up with to reach out, and the focus groups, a video, one-on-one, nextdoor.com, whatever channel, and as many as possible that we can use to get the word out and get public engagement, so that you don't run into situations where something is brought before the council, for example, and a group from out of nowhere questions what's been going on. How did we get here? So trying to get out in front of the visibility, I think, is really critical in as many ways as possible.
So knowing that we're really talking about the focus groups, but hearing feedback on how to get the word out and recruit folks and raise awareness, it would seem appropriate for me to include and work with the chair to include a discussion item on a video kind of approach to marketing the work of the committee and where you're headed. So we'll plan to put that on the next agenda. I think that's a great idea.
And now we're adjourned.